Fight fans talking about Curl Cruise MMA. Today we got a special guest for you. My guest getting ready, fighting Friday night main event LFA 223. He's taking on Luis Francischinelli for that 170 LFA title. He is Mr. Jonathan Piersma. Jonathan, what's up, my friend? How are you?
Good. How's it going?
It's going good, man. So here we are, fight week, big title, main
Finally.
event contest on Friday. Are you feeling it? You feeling that energy right now?
Yeah, I'm always excited when we get to fight week. This week's more about focus on the weight cut, just being ready. But yeah, I'm always excited when we get to fight week. Finally, just one day closer to what we're here to do.
Absolutely. So many people are watching this in this day and age, man. MMA is at such a big stage right now. Obviously, the UFC, PFL, Bare Knuckles, all these shows. Very few
Um,
people understand what it's like to be a professional fighter. I feel like they see the John Joneses and the Habibs and the Islams. They see the fame, the fortune, the glory of it. When you're fighting on the regional scene, man, a lot of guys have to have those 9 to 5 jobs. You're not making Conor McGregor money quite yet. You're staying up late, waking up early, sacrificing everything, maybe for the opportunity to fight in the big shows. You've been very successful so far, but what's made you stick through and continue along this journey?
yeah, man, for sure. It's people looking in from the outside. Yeah, definitely. You're not making the big money and getting all this fame and fortune at this level yet. So it's a grind, but it's an investment. Knowing how good I am, knowing that I deserve to belong on that level. So yeah, you just got to put in. You got to put in the time. You got to make the sacrifices. You just got to work your way up. But I think just believing in myself, knowing how good I am, that's allowed me to stay with this long, knowing that it's going to pay off someday. And I think very soon, especially when I win this fight Friday night, win the LFA 170 title. There's really not much more you can do than that outside of the UFC regionally. This is probably the biggest title to win. It's not even really a regional belt; it's worldwide. Um, so yeah, just believe in myself, knowing how good I am, and that I'm gonna get there someday, which I think is gonna be soon.
One thing, if you watch anyone watch you fight, you're a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. I mean, you have wins by knockout, you have wins on the ground with different chokes. For you, at what point in the career did you really start thinking, hey, if I want to try to make it to the next level, I got to be as well-rounded as possible?
Yeah, that was always the plan. Obviously, especially early in my career, I always took to grappling, more naturally. So I've always just fought to my strengths, and most of my fights have ended up in on the ground in grappling situations. So, I haven't had to use my striking nearly as much as my grappling in my career. That doesn't mean it's not there. It's just it's my strengths. So you got to play to your strengths. I mean, like even like in the UFC, you watch a guy like Islam who might be one of the best to ever do it, and 20 out of 25 minutes of that fight, he's using his grappling. So I think you just got to use your strengths, especially at this level. So close to the UFC. You got to be smart. Do what you're good at. So, yeah, I always aim to be a well-rounded fighter and be able to win the fight no matter where it is. But you got to play your strengths also.
You mentioned grappling. You've had the opportunity to showcase yourself in the Fury Grappling Show. You took on UFC guy and Phil Rowe and had success. What was that opportunity like?
Yeah, that was cool. That was yeah. At the time, I was fighting with CFFC. I was under contract for them, so they had a big grappling show. And last minute, they're like, "Hey, we got an open. You want to jump on this and grapple against Phil Rowe, who was in the UFC?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure. No gi grappling. I love doing that when I get a chance to make some money doing something I love." So jumped on that. It was super cool. Like I said, I mean, it just proves how good I know I am. Beating and straight up just no gi grappling. I'm confident I could beat pretty much any UFC 170 or so. Yeah, no, it was a super cool opportunity, and I love being able to jump into stuff like that.
Already you're a multiple time champion on the regional scene. One of those promotions, Cage Titans, a huge promotion in that Massachusetts area. You took on Everett. You were able to beat him in the third round to win that Cage Titans title. What was that like?
Yeah, man. That little Cage Titans run I had, those three fights, and I think yeah last year. It was great. Cage Titans was great. They put on a great show down there, and they treated me great. I had those three fights, I think, within like 4 or 5 months. Won the title, defended it. So yeah, it was great. I love Cage Titans. It was probably one of my favorite shows to fight on. And yeah, it was awesome.
Another guy you beat over there was Jack Congdon. Obviously, he fought on the Dana White Contender Series last year. Is it kind of cool when you fight guys and you see them take that next step?
Nah, it pissed me off because I fucking beat the shit out of him, and he was on a Contender Series. So nah, it is what it is. But it's just me knowing how good I am, and I want to beat these guys, and then they get those opportunities. So yeah, it's frustrating, but also it just shows I know how good I am. And that time will come.
Absolutely. You also have the opportunity to fight on road to the UFC. Obviously, it didn't go your way, but what was that opportunity like for you?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird spot I was in. It came up probably one of the worst possible times it could have for me. At that point, I was actually scheduled to get surgery on my knee to repair my ACL. They called me, and I said I can't turn this down, so I postponed the surgery, did the fight. So I made that decision to do it. So it is what it is. But um, yeah, it was a cool opportunity. I just hope I get a chance to really go there for another opportunity and really show how good I really am, because I just know that night I didn't get to show anywhere as near the potential I am. And I think on a night when I'm healthy and ready to fight, I would have beat that guy 9 out of 10 times.
For you, what's the ultimate goal? What are you looking to accomplish with this?
I mean, ultimate goal is always get to the UFC, be a UFC champion. But my goal is just to be the best version of myself. Wherever that takes me, if I think that'll take me very far in the sport. Um, but just being the best version of myself, I think that's the goal every day. And just showing that on Friday night.
Sometimes when you look at different guys in the regional scenes, you look at those records, and sometimes you're like, okay, this guy's fighting guys that are like 4-8, 5-7, all this stuff. This is going to be the fifth undefeated opponent in a row for you. For you, how important is it testing yourself and trying to fight the toughest guys possible?
Yeah, that's just kind of been my whole career in a nutshell. You see these guys that, run their records up, and, they're beating guys who are horrible, losing records. I've just never had that. My whole career, I've always had to fight the hometown guys, the undefeated guys. I'm always being brought in to usually probably lose. But that is what it is. That's just been my path. I've never had the easy road at really anything I've done in life. So, I've accepted it. Even with this fight, I know what it is. I know I'm getting brought in to showcase him and probably, hopefully, get him to the UFC. That's what they're planning. But that's just been my career, and that's what I'm used to. So it's nothing new to me. So I embrace it, and I actually enjoy beating guys who are undefeated that I'm thought being brought in to think to lose to. So I embrace it. I enjoy it. I like taking people's zeros.
For you, do you feel that fighting is more mental than it is physical?
I think it's probably 50-50. Yeah, the mental side of fighting is just as big as the physical part. You see it all the time, guys who are killers in the gym, but they can't put it together on fight nights. So I think fighting is definitely just as big or more so mental as it is a physical sport.
Absolutely. You're from that New York area. When you look at New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts area, see a lot of promotions up there, see a lot of guys in that next level. MMA is kind of a hotbed up there. What is it with that area and fighting?
Um, I don't know. I just think the sport as a whole is getting so much more popular. Like just in the gym I train at, back when I started fighting amateur, I was like one of the only few guys really fighting. And fast forward today, we have 5 or 6 pro fighters. We got 20 amateurs. So it's just, I think the whole sport's growing as a whole. Um, People are getting into it earlier in their lives. So I think it's just the sport as a whole is becoming way more popular.
Absolutely. So you're getting ready to take on Luis Francischinelli on Friday. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent here?
Um, I think he's a talented striker. Um, I think the biggest thing everyone looks at is 6'6" his frame. Obviously at 170, you don't see that very often. So that presents people a lot of challenges. But yeah, I mean he's 5-0, very talented striker. He comes with a very tricky physical attributes, I think. But at the same time, I don't think he's ever been tested. He's never fought anyone like me. He's never been out of a first round. Um, So yeah, I think experience is going to play a big role in this fight, and I just don't think. I think jumping up to fighting me from what he's fought so far is going to be a big shock to him.
A cool thing with this one, you get to fight in your home state, you get to fight in your local area. How cool is that?
Yeah, I don't get that very much in my career. Yeah, usually I'm always traveling. We don't, there's not much for professional fights out, in Western New York. Or New York State really as a whole. So I don't get this opportunity very much. So, when they offered it to me, obviously I was excited, took it. Um, but yeah, it's cool. A lot of people that have never got to see me fight or, get a chance. Especially, being able to fight close to home also for like, LFA title, which is a huge deal. So yeah, it was an awesome opportunity. I'm glad, it worked out like this, and I'm excited for Friday night.
When you look at some of the biggest names in the UFC right now, a lot of those guys have come from the LFA. A lot of them have won those LFA titles. What would it mean for you to put yourself on that list?
Yeah, it would be a huge accomplishment. Like you said, the biggest thing is, LFA as a promotion is just, probably the number one organization feeder to the UFC nowadays. So, I know that if I go out Friday, do what I have to do, and win this title, there's not really much more I can do. So it puts me in a position where I'm right at the door of the UFC, and like, getting this title really, pushes me to the front of the line, and hopefully, forces their hand to, sign me, get me in there. Um, but yeah, it'd be a huge accomplishment. It'd be my fourth regional title, and this would be the biggest one by far. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and just being, be able to add to the ranks of the guys who have held the LFA titles in the past would be, a cool thing.
Mixed martial arts is a wonderful thing, all the different values and morals, disciplines it evokes. For you, man, how do you think you have changed and evolved as a person from being in MMA?
Um, I don't know. That's I guess it's a good question. Um, I think for a lot of people, it does make you a better person normally. I just think being able to go to the gym and fight someone, it helps. It makes you a lot more, calm and not as confrontational in outside life for the most part. I mean, not every fighter's like that, but I think it definitely has helped me in a lot of aspects in life. So yeah, I think it's definitely been a good thing.
Absolutely. Feel like for the most part, people are starting to understand what you fighters do. They get that you're trying to train to get fights, get bigger fights, win belts, go to UFC and all that stuff. But very few people, in my opinion, understand the fight outside of the fight. And to me, that's that fight not to have to clock in at 9 o'clock in the morning, clock out at 5. That's that fight to secure financial freedom. That's that fight not to live life by societal norms. Essentially, creating a mission, creating an audience, living life on your terms. For you, has this been a big part of the journey?
Yeah, for sure. I think, one of the biggest reasons that, I've went this route is just, loving what I do every day. Obviously, like I said, I'm not at a point yet where I'm making that big money or that big fame or all the payoffs yet. Obviously, I haven't got to that level, but there's a lot in the fact of, every day I get to wake up and train, make my schedule. My life revolves around doing what I love. So I think that's a huge part, So obviously, get to the UFC and start actually getting paid off for doing that. It'd just be a cherry on top. But just doing what I love every day, I don't work a 9 to 5 like a lot of my buddies, like got out of college, got good jobs, 9 to 5, and but that just wasn't me. I couldn't do that. So yeah, I just think that doing what I love every day, in my life and my schedule is, formed around that. So that the freedom in that, even if it's not financial freedom yet, um, is a lot. And I think that's a big thing I really love about it.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up here, I want to talk about some big UFC fights with you. I want to get your predictions of some of these big matchups as we end the year. So this weekend in Qatar, we got a huge event here. You got Arman Sarukian taking on Dan Hooker. Who wins that one?
Probably Armin, I would guess.
That same card, you got Bilal Muhammad taking on Ian Gary. Who wins that fight?
I'm gonna go Gary.
In December, we got the big one to close the year. You got Josh Van taking on Alexandre Pantoja. Who wins that?
I'm gonna go Pantoja. He's just too good.
And then the main event there, you got 135, big contest. Merab Dvalishvili taking on Piotr Jan. Who wins it the second time around?
I'm going Marab. That dude's a freak. I don't see anyone beating him anytime soon.
Absolutely. You know, we just mentioned some of the biggest names in the sport right now. For you, man, when you're watching the big fights, do you get any motivation off of it? Do these other guys pump you up?
I mean, I just get motivated for the fact of watching it, and that's where I want to be. You know what I mean? Watching those events and striving. That's where I want to be. That's where I belong. Watching it, seeing that, so that's motivation to know I'm good enough to be there. So, yeah, just watching it and just wanting to be a part of that and knowing I'm good enough to be a part of it. So I think that's motivation itself.
Absolutely. You know, you're in that 170-pound division, the division in the UFC that's got so many great killers in it. On the regional scene, it's stacked as well. Do you enjoy knowing that, hey, man, you make it to the UFC, you're finding nothing but killers?
Yeah, that's just par for the course. Like I said, my whole career, that's all it's ever been. Like I said, I think this is my fifth straight undefeated prospect. So yeah, that's all it's ever been for me. So it won't be anything new. I've always taken the hard fights, and that's all I've ever gotten. So I don't expect it to be any different, Friday night or going forward when I get to the UFC. So I embrace it, and like I said, if I believe in myself and I'm as good as I think I am, then it doesn't matter who they put in the cage in front of me.
Absolutely. All right, John, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome Friday night when you fight LFA for that 170 title against Luis Francischinelli?
Perfect roll is a quick finish, and I don't get beat up at all, and I can go celebrate with all my friends and family at the fight. But yeah, early stoppage, perfect world, but we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, it's a really talented guy, really good striker. So I don't think really anyone knows how this fight's going to go. It could go a lot of different ways. It could be a quick finish. It could be 3, 4, or 5 rounds. Who knows? I'm prepared for whatever's going to happen. But like I said, we're going to try to get it done quick and prefer not to have to go to the hospital Friday night.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, man, thank you so much for taking the time out by week talk to me. Can't wait for this contest. It's going to be a great one.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's it for us today. I'm Carl Persley. He is Mr. Jonathan Piersma. You could watch him main eventing LFA 223, going for that 170 title against Luis Francischinelli Friday night. Take care, fight fans.